we've got a video after it too. So, hey,
Mm-hmm.
looks like we're live. Should be muted on this end. Um, by the way, I just wanted like my boss, my friend who I work for, here in Minneapolis, he is about to travel to Northern California where all those wildfires are tomorrow. And he just sent me a message before the show and he's like, we might be canceling our trip. And I'm like, what? No way. It's like an anniversary, like a 20-year anniversary trip that they're going to possibly cancel.
Aw.
That sucks so bad. Okay.
It does.
We should be live. We are live. Good deal. Awesome. All right. Marconin, I have the notes in here for some of the I have the just the bits in here about the article and stuff. We're just going to talk about ranting online. Is it good for you or is it not good for you?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about the article, and I looked at it earlier this week.
Cool. Make sure.
So yeah, it's
all my stuff.
yeah, there's a lot to say about that.
Gosh, yeah. Okay. It looks like there's nobody in the chat room at the moment, but if you show up, hi guys, we're here. That's Wendy Cooper right there, and she's awesome.
Hi.
We are here.
We are here. Okay, so I'm going to just do a countdown, and then we're going to go, because I don't have sounders to go with anything, because nothing's working. That's fine. So here we go. All right, Tauren Think Tank, episode 247, records in 3, 2, 1. It's episode 247 of Tauren Think Tank. Today is October 9th. It is a Monday. What is a Monday? I'm recording on a Monday afternoon at 1:09 p.m. Central Time. But for us, it's Central Time. For our guest, it's a lot later. First, let me bring in my wonderful co-host, Mark Conan, who just, like, raced off the road to get here. Hi, Mark Conan.
Yeah, hey there, Jules. Yeah, it's been a pretty hectic morning for me, and came in by the skin of my teeth, but it worked. It worked. I'm here, and so is Jules, and so is our awesome guest, and I can't wait to start the discussion. So yeah, hello everybody. Good afternoon instead of good evening.
Good afternoon, and let's talk about our wonderful guest. This is someone who I have wanted to talk to on a podcast forever. From the Morning Streams Therapy Thursday and the Therapy Show, we have Wendy Dunford, all the way from Sweden. Hi, Wendy.
Hi. Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
I have been listening to Therapy Thursday since it started. I'm not kidding. I probably have listened to almost every episode of it. I love the Therapy Show, so I'm a little bit fangirly right now because I have really loved the advice, the perspective, and the discussions that you and Scott and Brian have had on those shows over the last 5 years now, 6 years.
Wow. Almost 6, yeah.
That is insane. And I want to thank you, first of all, for coming to join us. And second of all, for all of the people who you have helped over the years and have changed lives. Like, people have written to you and said, your perspective changed my life. And she's just nodding.
That's
she's like,
crazy. I mean, I feel like 6 years. We should have healed everyone, but no,
Right.
There's still work to be done.
Well, and that is exactly what we're kind of planning to do today. But Wendy, how long have you been a psychologist? How long have you been practicing?
Oh, wow. Let's see. I should have practiced this before. I started when I was 24. It's been a while. So technically about 17, 18 years. I took a couple years off when I had my first kid, but going strong for about 12 years. And yeah, a long time. I've been in private practice now for, 10. How is time going so fast? I feel like I should say 1 or 2 years, but it's way longer than that. So most of my adult life, let's just say half my life at this point.
That's fair enough. And
Yeah.
you've been, so you've recently relocated to Sweden from growing up in Utah. Are you still able to practice with clients in the United States?
Yes. So my license is really good in one place, and that's Utah. So anyone who's not there, too bad you can't ever sue me. You can't complain. No. And so I continue to see my clients there. And then my technical name in Sweden is I'm a life coach / therapist, but I do the exact same stuff. I just don't have any, it's a very strange thing. I don't have any legal ramifications for doing that. Apparently anyone can say they're a life coach. So,
yes.
But it's been really handy for me to live in a different place and still get to do the work that I love to do, and from people everywhere. So I have people in Asia. Those are my favorite clients, by the way, because that means it's my morning when I see them after work, which is awesome. Australia is very handy as well. And then I see quite a few people in Europe, and then of course in the States. So it's really such a cool experience.
It really is.
It really is.
Giving advice and support and therapy over the internet.
Right. It's nuts.
Did you ever see yourself doing that when you first started going into therapy? Really?
Never. It was 4 years. We moved here 3 years ago. And the first client, I said, hey, let's just try it. I'd seen her for a year or two, so I knew her really well. I'm like, it may just be terrible. We lived in this farmhouse in the middle of nowhere in Sweden. But of course, it's Sweden, so everyone has fiber, even if you live in the middle of nowhere. So it actually worked really well. And I was really surprised. So we just kept going, and it's sort of slowly grown from there. So it's kind of the wave of the future, I mean, there's definitely some age stuff. Folks who, are really comfortable with life online. This is no big deal. It's a no-brainer. We all wear our yoga pants. I'm literally wearing yoga pants right now.
Yes.
That are not used for yoga. They're used for sitting and talking. But so there's a lot of people who are really comfortable with that. And then there's definitely folks who maybe a generation or two older who are just still really want the face-to-face, which is great. Sometimes that's what you need. Absolutely. But it's a nice option, which is kind of cool.
That is I love it. I love that this is the time where people who need to get in touch and speak to a therapist can do that.
Yeah, it's all about the access.
Yeah. Absolutely. So now that you guys have gotten a chance to get to know Wendy, if you don't listen to the morning stream, and if you aren't, why aren't you? Because her Therapy Thursday segment is awesome. We are going to talk about our topic of the week. And this topic actually hit me on a very opportune time. I was traveling to a Renaissance festival last weekend, and it's about an hour away distance-wise from where I live. And because of traffic and the circumstances of the weekend being absolutely gorgeous on that Saturday, a 1 hour drive took me 3 hours to get there. And I was furious because I was just like, I am frustrated. I was trying to meet up with friends. They were waiting for me. I just didn't want to. I hate traffic. I don't want to sit in the car for 3 hours and just all of that stuff. And what did I do but really reach for my phone to go onto social media and just kind of vent out my frustration? I was going to go do that. And I stopped myself. I'm like, no, you can't do that. That's not a good idea. It's probably not a good idea to do this. It's just going to be a temporary release. And so I kind of I'm still trying to deal with this frustration. And on my podcast app, I'm listening to NPR's Invisibilia. And they are literally talking about this topic, about going online and venting, raging, putting out anger. And I'm like, well, this is serendipitous. Talked about a study that was done out of the University of Wisconsin, Green Bay, about how people think that you can go online and vent and you feel better, but it actually makes us angrier. And I went, oh my gosh, Wendy, we got to talk about this. Because this kind of blew my mind. So when I sent this to you, you were like, yes, let's talk about it. I mean, we live in this world of social media. When people vent online, is it making us angrier?
Yeah, simply, yes. Well, first of all, let me ask you about that urge. So you're frustrated, you are in the car, you have all these sort of ongoing story in your head about how great it would be to be there and So it's just disappointment every second, right? Frustration every second. So where did the impulse to tell the world about it come from? What do you think that is?
That was the feeling that someone would relate to my frustration.
Okay. So you're doing a very social creature kind of thing, right? Which is not being alone in my frustration or my pain or my whatever. We are built to reach out and connect with someone and get that validation that we're okay or that we're supported or whatever it is, right? So we have this new way of doing it. It used to be you'd have to call someone or physically see someone to get this type of interaction. Now you can just type a few words. And then, like magic, you get lots of, oh, that's the worst. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I mean, you will get all the things you want to hear within seconds, yeah? And it does feel good. You actually feel pretty good for a minute. And that's kind of the key. That's the key, that it's not a long-lasting effect. It's definitely temporary. But here's the thing. If you were with a friend, or you pulled over to the side of the road and a friend happened to be there and you could share it face to face, would you feel better and remain feeling better? I don't know if we have a study on that specifically, but we generally know, yeah, it works. That's part of what having connections does. But why does the internet then leave us empty afterwards, or the anger just increases? Any guesses? What do you guys think?
So this I don't know, Mark Honan, you may want to jump in on this because you don't vent on anything.
No, I don't.
He doesn't. I've never seen anybody like him that doesn't have this like urge, just want to go like hit the pressure release valve and just get it out of his system.
Well, I do that for a couple of reasons. I keep views on controversial topics, on topical things, most things people complain about online. I keep that offline. My Twitter is for video games, friends, and cats, and that's pretty much it. So I keep a filter on that. It's all up here, and occasionally I will talk to others, but usually it's in person. I just don't have the urge to just spray anger out online, because that's not what I'm about. That's not what I want to broadcast, because if I did, I'd be venting my personal problems to people that don't know me, people that follow me because of the show or because of voice stuff or any host of reasons, or they're a bot, and they don't need to know my personal problems. So I will vent to people in my life. I will vent to Jules. I will vent to my wife. I'll vent to my friends at work. But I just don't see the need in just blasting it out online. And plus, the way that the internet now is, where it's an echo chamber versus another echo chamber, if you differ slightly in the least from the people that follow you or that like you, you will catch hell. And you will lose people, you will lose relationships, because we can't have a honest, disagreeable, but still being friends conversation 9 times out of 10 online. So I'm very cautious about that, because I have friends who I differ with greatly, but I still love them. They're still my friends. And I don't want to take a chance on ruining a friendship over something that's not really that important. So that's why I don't talk about stuff online much. But
so I am really curious. When and where did you decide that's the way you would live your life? Did you have a moment where you did vent a little and it bit you in the butt, or like, how did you get to this? Because there's so many people that are going, I don't even know what he's talking about. They don't know how to do this thing.
Yeah, well, it's, for one thing, my mom watches the show, and I don't like to have a potty mouth on the air or anything like that. She watches the live show every week on Thursdays. And so it's like, what would I be okay with my mom seeing or my grandmother seeing? And you get what you give a lot of times. So I want to give support and love and all those positive emotions, because you tend to get that back. And I think that may be one of the reasons why venting online makes you more unhappy, is because you get what you give. You get that negativity back. Yes, you get I've totally been there too. This time, this bad thing happened to me, and it kind of stacks negative experiences on top of each other. At least that's my theory, or one idea of it, is that, kind of like you get what you give. So that's why I don't talk about current events usually on the internet outrage stuff or stuff I'm mad at, because when you vent to friends and to people around you, you can kind of, to me, it feels like you get that cool down, like you do you drop off. But when it's online, it's like a sticky note. It's there. It does not go away. It stays there and just sits. And so people can go back to it, or you can go back to it, or you'll see it again. And it reinforces it. Whereas if you're griping about traffic with your friend in the car, then later on you go for dinner or something, and then you forget about it and you have a great evening and you move on, because it's just words. And once the words are gone, they're gone. So that's kind of how I think about it.
Amen. That's really good. Really good.
I love it.
Spread love, people. Spread love.
And now that point right there, Wendy, I wanted to ask you about, because I actually feel like when I read all of the things that people post and you know, I feel like it's a spray of energy that goes out into the ether, and you've gotten rid of it. You've gone on and you've just said, "Blah, my life sucks," and then it now has released on you, released from you, on every single person that read it, and now they've got it. Now they hold it, and I but on the other side, I don't feel, and I agree with Marconin on this, I don't feel that countering negative energy by calling someone on their negative energy does any good either. So I saw this post today on social media, and actually someone sent me a message and said, "Did you see this?" Because I was about to go off on them about how tone deaf they were. And I was like, yeah, I literally had to get up and walk away from my computer for a few minutes just so that I didn't go, "Do you realize how cruel that was? Like, do you realize what you said is totally mean to the person that you did?" Like, because they took a picture of someone in their life and blasted them on Twitter. And I was just like, and I really wanted to say something. I really did. I was like, "Did you?" And then I'm like, but it would not do me any good to do that. And I don't know, like, if it makes me, does it make me angrier because I've seen it, or that I didn't say anything about it?
That's a good question. I think one thing to recognize here that is, it's just an important facet of this conversation, any conversation where it's so easy for people to get offended, it's so easy to give offense, is actually a really weird growing pain.
Yeah.
So when the world was incredibly unequal, when, Jules, you and I couldn't own property, right? I mean, when there was a time where there was so much injustice, the gap between what someone said and what was right and wrong and reality, it was so big, that the offense that we see now is what we call it microaggression. It's small little bites. It's death by 1,000 cuts. And so so that's the weird flip side of it being a good thing, is that the society is much more equal. So now we have the privilege to say that was offensive, or, et cetera. But it's just as damaging. The aggression is just as damaging. Not to say it's not. It's just we're at a different time in history where, and then we all have megaphones. So I think there's another factor here, is that there is no sort of behavior test or IQ test or driving test to use the internet, right? There is no way to say, are you going to be a good citizen here? There's no way. It's just free for all. And it should be, of course, on one hand, but on the other, it means there are people who are going to do and say things with a megaphone that, will cause harm, will create problems, will be offensive, will be, et cetera, et cetera. So, it's going to happen. However, it comes down to our own personal response. I think, Marconin, you have a great philosophy to live by, and I can guarantee you reap that benefit all the time, right? Generally, you probably are a little more at peace than, say, the guy who rants all the time online. Yes.
I had a coworker who all he did was complain all the time, everything, every little thing he would scream about. He would rage at the tiniest little thing. But I'm more laid back than that. I was like, it's okay. Like, people offend me all the time. I all the time. I find stuff offensive, but it's their right to say it. They're not breaking any laws, and I don't have to listen to it if I don't want to. I'm not gonna fix their opinion. I'm not gonna make them not say something they don't want to say, but I don't have to listen. They're not physically right in my face, so if I don't like them, I'll mute them. I'll stop following them. I won't pay attention to them. I won't listen to their podcast. I won't watch their TV show. Like, I don't really like Seth MacFarlane on a personal level, but The Orville is a fantastic sci-fi show, and I'm a big sci-fi Star Trek nerd, so I will forego his personal opinions to enjoy the craft that he makes, and it's making that distinction sometimes that you really got to go with. Sometimes you like the art, but not the artist.
Right. How about you, Jules? How do you because you described two scenarios where you're finding yourself, okay, I don't want to do that. Ugh, I gotta, you're kind of conflicted.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes it's helpful to have a sort of underlying philosophy. So what is yours? Now, living it's harder, right? But what do you think your underlying ethos is online?
Well, see, now I have a really strong I have a strong code for myself that I don't pick battles with people. I don't, ever. Especially online. If you want to have a conversation with me about something privately and one-on-one, absolutely. And I also don't put my opinion where it's not wanted. So if I decide to state an opinion on social media, I do it knowing that it's not going to be a two-way conversation with most people. It's just going to be like, you know what? And I used in our exchange of emails back and forth between Wendy and I used our government as an example. Like, it is very difficult sometimes to not speak out about the things that have happened in our government. And I struggle with this every single day because I feel like I if I don't do something about it, then I'm not doing something about it. So there's that part of it. But I had someone ask me one time that they asked me if I was watching them on social media, and they basically had to say something about any opinion that they disagreed with. And they asked me, they said, Jules, how do you not get into it with people that you don't agree with? And I said, it's not worth my time.
Mm-hmm.
It's not worth my time to get so freaked out and upset over what you perceive as wrong. I see what people say out there and perceive it as wrong, but I also know that I am not going to change their opinion by telling them that they're wrong. It's not going to happen.
It's one of the worst ways to convince someone otherwise is to just point your finger and say you're wrong.
So the way that I live, I try to live by example, and I think that's one of the hardest things that is happening right now is that there's so much hypocrisy that keeps coming up in the news, like, do as I say, not as I do kind of stuff, and that burns my bread so much. I cannot stand hypocrisy because that is something that I try to live by. So if I'm going to do something, if I'm going to say something, I got to stand behind it. That's my moral code.
Okay. So that you both have great moral codes. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You really have to plan how you're going to interact. It's a whole nother thing. So you guys remember high school, right? You remember that you had to do and not do certain things to survive. Junior high is probably a better example of that. And you have to survive. You had to get out. There was this whole new world. And little did we know, the internet would just be a giant high school. So much of the same dynamics would exist. It's just what happens in the adult world before the internet was that there is the social interactions, the requirement of face-to-face forced some maturing on us. And that's what it's done to adults for a long time. But the internet is this place where you can be juvenile and anonymous and whatever for a long time. And so it's hard to get that feedback that says, hey, it's not okay to keep acting this way. And so you have to kind of determine yourself, who am I going to be? It's that age-old question you were grappling with as a young person. Who am I going to be online? Who am I, and what do I stand for, and how do I treat others? And that is not easy to do because to some extent negativity is contagious.
Yes.
So is positivity, but it doesn't seem to stick quite as well.
Yeah, negativity is much easier.
So it is the laziest form of entertainment, right? I mean, it requires no thought, no effort. It just is easy to jump on that. So I want to bring up something that I think is helpful here. Is this idea of mirror neurons? You guys have probably heard these talked about before, and they're studying them and trying to figure out how they all work and how it's connected to various things. And the idea of a mirror neuron is that when I'm looking at someone performing a physical task, the parts of my brain that would be engaged if I did that physical task, just light up from me watching someone do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not exactly the same pattern. There's sort of a theory of mind going on, like, oh, my mind it's like game day, and I'm practicing the things in my head as I'm watching someone else do it. I think that's why I'm gonna throw a movie nerd reference in. Woo. Look at me, everyone. I'm growing up.
By all means.
Please do. Okay,
Yes.
I don't know. I thought Wonder Woman was very fun to watch, and I will tell you, when she flipped over that rock and shot 3 arrows and killed 3 people at one time, my mirror neurons were definitely on, and they were like, you could do that if you could just run faster or knew how to shoot an arrow. I mean, there was like a relating that is almost visceral. I have this problem whenever I see superhero movies. I'm sure I can do the stuff they did when I walk out of the theater. It's a little dumb high that lasts about 30 minutes. But anyway, so it activates the parts of our brain that we want to mimic something, right? So this is how children learn. They watch what others are doing, and the mirror neurons are firing, and they start to coordinate their muscles and their bodies to what they are seeing happen. So this can be applied to empathy. So when we see someone who's in pain and we see somebody who is sad, we see the emotion on their face or happy, it doesn't matter what it is, it will trigger these mirror neurons. We see and feel ourselves within them because we too, as humans, have those same responses. And that's a huge factor with someone tweeting something and there's no voice, no face, no context. We can't hear sarcasm, in the written word. There's none of the mirror neurons happening. So when that hits us, it hits us in our just the most self-righteous state it could possibly get us, which is, I'm in my head and I'm right and I'm smart and I know best or whatever. And here's this person who's doing it all wrong. There is no way for us to sort of mirror or even relate to what they're doing or looking at their face when they're saying that thing. Yes. So it's really hard, really hard.
It's so true.
Yeah.
I mean, and I find, like, when you're talking about the mirror neurons, for people who I know, who I've seen their faces, I've interacted with them personally, either through video chat or in person. Like, when they're expressing some kind of difficulty, like, I immediately just kind of go, oh my God, I want to hug you. And if it's that kind of like acquaintance or someone that I follow and I don't really have that connection with them, and they're just saying, my life sucks, and I'm like, oh yeah, suck it up. It's just kind of how it reacts, because I don't have that personal connection with them, and so we've just taken that away by going online and just kind of spouting it off. If I don't connect to you personally in some way, then I'm going to be less likely to want to say something about your personal struggles.
Right. Well, and then I think there's this late night temptation people have. I call it the late night temptation. I don't know what I call it. I just made that up. But the idea being, you're a little tired. Think about the moments you want to vent or rant or, whatever. It's typically because you're probably a little hungry, you're a little tired, you're hangry, you are not in optimal condition.
Yeah. And
so you go to writing that out and sending that out into the world. I always tell my clients they have certain rules when they work with me. And the first rule is that they have to be off all of social media for about a month. They just have to do it 1 month. And then I just want to, what is it like before? What's their life like after? Okay. And what's really amazing, and at this point, it's anecdotal, but 100% of them say the same thing, which is, I had no idea how badly that was affecting my self-esteem, my confidence, I have so much more time. I feel less angry. They'll describe feeling less angry, less jealous, all these good things. And then they can go back to social media and they'll say the same thing. They'll say, I just don't need it quite as much.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a few clients who just every 6 months take a month off and just reset what's normal. Because you go from, it's so important to see that person's vacation pictures. It's the most important thing I'll do today, to taking a break, letting your brain relax, going back and saying, why did I care about that person's vacation to Wichita or whatever? So it's a nice way to, because what it does is social media creates the illusion, and some of it's legit, of course, of social connecting and bonding and human, all the stuff we need to survive as people, and sense of group and all those good things. And it's great, but if it's not coupled with other things that also nurture you, it can become this place that creates a lot of emotions without sort of being remedied by all the good stuff. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the things I have them do just to get a break. And then the other thing I have them do is they have a 24-hour rule, getting back to my original point. They can write out an email, they can create a tweet, they can do whatever, but they have to wait 24 hours before sending it. And when that 24 hours is up, they read it, and then they decide, do they want to say that? And it's amazing, because about 900% of the time you don't want to send it.
Yeah, unless you're like sending pictures about your vacation and putting them up there.
Exactly. Then you want to send that, So a little break is amazing.
And when you, earlier when you were talking about how how you get all of these things that we need with the interactions and in the emotional responses, but it's kind of like it's glamour, but not all. There's no substance behind it. And I think one thing about some of that is that your online presence is whoever you want them to see you as. Yes. So there's a lot of people who, I don't put my bad stuff on the internet, and I know there's a lot of people that every picture is a great selfie. Every picture is like, oh, look at my big house. Oh, look at these cute animals I have. Look at this great sunset. And it's all this. It's picture perfect. And it can lead to jealousy. It can lead to people saying, why isn't my life as good as hers? Or, she, and it kind of creates this false identity of who we are online, because if you're a family member or a close friend and you see that person day in and day out, or very often, you get to see both sides of that coin. You get to see that person as a whole person. And whereas online you don't. Like people that I follow, I only know them superficially. They're a paper cutout of a person. Yeah. And that's what makes it so much easier to lash out at people, is because they're not a whole person. This show is about the person behind the keyboard, and we should never forget that there are whole people behind there, and that I don't put my bad days online. I have horrible days sometimes, but they don't go online. So I'm, everybody
and
online is a whole person.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
Somebody may argue like you need to be the real you. So they're like, go for it. Say everything that you really feel and think.
You don't want that. No one really wants you. No one wants 100% honesty 100% of the time. No one wants that. You think you do, but you don't.
You don't want it real.
No.
It's I read this and I thought it was, and I use this almost every single day, and it said, don't let someone else's highlight reel determine your day-to-day.
Mm-hmm.
And because you're seeing what someone wants you to see.
Yep.
I can tell you how many times I've taken a selfie of something that and how often I have cropped it and realigned it so it doesn't show the certain things I don't want it to show, and it looks like the perfect picture. It took a while to get there. Like I manipulated that picture so that you would see the best side of it, and I might have retaken it like 4 or 5 times, or 20. And so there is a thing about social media that and Wendy, you put this so well, is like there's no test, there's no license. Anybody can use their social media, but the way that they want to. But here's the problem. So I had somebody, I followed someone on Twitter, and I expected that I followed their account because I wanted to see, I thought they were doing certain things on their account because I thought that's what it was. Well, they were basically using their account to do a play-by-play of pretty much every hour of their life. Like, I'm going to go to the grocery store now, and I'm going to cook dinner now, and I'm really frustrated because family members are in town, and I don't like that. And it was like an hourly play-by-play of what their life was like, and I was like, nah, that's not why I followed this account. So I unfollowed them. I thought that was fine, right? And I get a message, I get a tweet back from this person saying, what did I do that made you unfollow me? And it was like, whoa. Like, I didn't realize that I had to report why I chose not to listen to you anymore. And that in itself, like, this is why I don't unfollow people. Like, I mute them now because I just, like, I don't want to deal with that kind of confrontation. Like, I just literally didn't want to see what you were saying.
Right. So you didn't respond?
I did not respond because I was like, you know what? Anything I said would be hurtful, wouldn't it? Like, I followed you because I thought you were something else. Like, no. You were saying things I didn't appreciate. No, I can't say that. And so I just didn't
Your life is boring.
Your life is
If I wanted to hear that every day, I would just live my own life because that's what my life is like, you know.
Yeah.
So so it's a really good. That's a really good ask. I actually didn't respond to it because it pissed me off. I was just like, why do I have to justify choosing or not choosing to listen to somebody? So now, and this has happened to me several times in the past to the point where now I just mute people because I don't want to see what they have to say anymore. Instead of going through the confrontation of someone saying, "Why'd you unfollow me?"
Right. I mean, you're alluding to something that is incredibly interesting, and we don't fully know the ramifications of yet. I mean, I'm coming from a non-technical background, so I'm probably totally wrong. But I mean, full-blown social media, everyone's living on their phones is really the last 5 years, 4, 3. Yeah. I mean, it just doesn't seem very long, right? In fact, I saw some pictures. Someone had done a series of pictures at Disney World and other theme parks around the world in 2010 and compared them to almost same angles, same locations, it seemed like the same people almost. And it seemed almost fake because in 2010, everyone's just watching things and smiling and talking to each other. And in 2017, every single head is down. At an amusement park. The thing created to entertain us is not as entertaining as this woman's tweets about every moment of her day, right? Yes. So it's really an interesting time. So we don't know the long-term sort of how this plays out exactly because we're in the middle of it starting, right? But I am intrigued by the misery I know it creates of this obsession with likes. And I feel good when there's this number. And then if it's less, what's wrong? And, I'm going to optimize all of these things because, we've become sort of so fragile in our egos based on it. So, and it's because it's not real when the praise is given and it's not real when it's withheld. It's your best fake self online that people happen to check their phone that moment and push like. I mean, and but what ultimately occurs for people is kind of a dopamine withdrawal syndrome kind of brain, which we get dopamine when we get a like, when we get a hit, when we get, and it keeps us coming back. It keeps us checking. And we're getting these little hits of dopamine. And we know dopamine is an awesome thing. It keeps us from dying because it makes us go get food. It keeps us having sex so we can keep having babies and children and humans. It keeps us drinking water so we don't die. I mean, it's really important, but it's pretty basic. We are now getting it in little doses thousands of times a day. And what we know about dopamine, that it downregulates the serotonin system. And serotonin is the feeling of good, like life's good, peace, calm. So when we talk about this anger thing, I really think some of it, if we sort of pan back, might be related to over dopamine stimulation. And guess what kind of dopamine you get when somebody's angry and ranting back and forth, or you're getting offended. And that anger is an awesome emotion for a really good reason. It's, and maybe this is helpful for people to think about. it's a secondary emotion. Anger is not a first emotion. A first emotion is, I'm sad, I'm hurt, I'm scared, I'm alone. Fear is a huge one. Something's not right. So anger is the thing that comes in, and sometimes it's very quickly. We don't spend very much time being afraid. We just go straight to anger, or sad, we go straight to anger. And what it does is it gives us a surge of adrenaline and power.
Mm-hmm.
So we need it. It's huge. It gets stuff done.
Yeah,
It's
fight
really
or flight.
important. Exactly. And the anger gives us the energy to do the thing we need to do to rectify the situation that made us angry. But if you are triggering your anger, I mean, you're essentially just warping the system that is meant to sort of provide this thing. Where does it go?
Yeah.
And the study that you actually sent me, I read every word because I'm a bit of a study nerd. And it was intriguing how the folks all reported feeling better after ranting. They got a little break from whatever the feeling was for a moment, but then it increased afterwards. And half of the people in this study had a physical altercation and a couple verbal altercations within a month.
Wow.
Of pretty typical, like on average, they're having that much conflict in their life. These are regular rant website users, regular ranters, So, the study isn't perfect, right? But there is some reason to think it may be correlated that you're just sort of steamrolling yourself, and it's pretty scary. So I jumped through 15 topics to get to that, but
no,
but,
you know what though? I've actually wondered if there are people out there who are addicted to being mad.
Oh yes,
because that's what I see. There's just this feeling of that they just have to keep trying to rustle up the emotions around other people, or just everything sets them off. Everything. It's my flight's delayed, or I didn't sleep well, and it's just this constant barrage of this anger that comes out. And so let's say that someone recognizes some of those traits in themselves right now. They're listening to this show and they go, oh gosh, that could be me. What do I do? What do they do?
Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you something that's really hard. You gotta find a friend who has a similar feeling as you, and do this together. Take 1 month off from social media, 30 days. And the first week, and I promise you, the first week you will have the shakes. Your hand will twitch. You will not know how to deal with your regular life without all of that stimulation coming in. So you might want to learn to meditate as well. But you have to cold turkey take a break and let your brain rest. And then after 30 days, go back. After 30 days, go back and pretend you're the same person. Do whatever you want to do. You will be shocked. Now, part of that is the brain will be coming off of all of those dopamine hits. And it will just calm down. 30 days is not like some magical number, but it really has seemed like it to me.
Yeah.
It really but I say get a friend, because what happens is people will report feeling kind of lonely and disconnected, and because they hadn't realized that they had made so many and only connections online, or there were parties going on. They knew probably, but they weren't seeing them on Facebook or whatever. So they would feel left out, or et cetera. And I always tell them, okay, that's normal to feel at first couple weeks. Okay. But trust me, week 3 and week 4, you will thank me. It is. So start with that. Start with a break. And then when you go back and you realize oh, that didn't help me at all, I'm still furious all the time. There may be just some more work you need to do with anger. And if you think in terms of anger as this secondary emotion, I'm afraid. So I always give this example, because if you've ever done this, you will relate. Your child runs for the street because they're all idiots. Why do all children think run to the street? I had one of my kids would run for a street, and if I said stop, freeze, all the normal things you say to get them to stop, it didn't work. The only thing I could yell that would work is I would say, do you want some chocolate? And then he would stop. And that is all that ever worked. It was so infuriating. Anyway, so the point is they run out into the street. It is just the most terrifying feeling in the world to see a human being running for a busy street, especially your own human being, your child, and you get a hold of them. And that fear in one split second turns to fury.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you go from, oh my gosh, my child will almost die, to I'm going to kill my child. Like it's a terrifying switch. It's very, very quick.
Yeah.
So most of us are really bad at seeing this transition of lonely, scared, frightened, is really a pretty common one. Hurt is a huge one. So think about when people are offended online. Are they actually angry? Or are they actually hurt first? And then anger is where the power is. So the work I would do with somebody, and they can think about maybe wanting to seek something out like this, would be finding what their actual power is. Because anger is also great in short-term bursts for power, but it's not a long-term solution for a successful life. So where are you powerless? And where can you gain back some of that power? One thing you said earlier, Jules, I think is really important, is choosing what you look at. Yeah. So I've done a recent experiment. I don't do any social media except Instagram because I think people are funny on Instagram, but I'm very particular about who I follow. I don't want to see anyone's vacation. Don't care. What I want to see, so I follow Humans of New York because it's very interesting.
Yes.
I don't know if you.
I love that one.
I just love the story because, of course, I love stories. But I love the stories, and it's great. And then National Geographic, or ones that show just beautiful scenes or animals or whatever. And then the rest are good news. And if you want to change how you feel every day, just watch good news. And you're like, what are you even talking about? So there's the Good News Network, which is a American broadcasting company that's very small, but it just reports cool stuff that's happened and things people are doing. So the shooting in Las Vegas is horrifying. And I live in another country. I can really filter what I partake of in American news. Mm-hmm. And I decided that I would minimize all the constant stuff that goes on with that type of thing, especially how it gets political so quickly, all of that. I would just shut that out. I had the general gist of what happened, and then I sought after all the stories of heroic efforts. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you, I feel like humanity is amazing. So there's one guy who did a horrible thing, but there are hundreds of people who are here, like incredible. The stuff they did was incredible. Mm-hmm. So I have a totally different feeling. Maybe it's not very realistic, but I lived in Sweden where it's, no one has any guns. So it's very comfortable for me to say this from this far away. But it really is an interesting, so experiment a little bit with yourself. Find out if you're hearing this going, yeah, I have a problem with anger. And I just said, get off social media and make choices about what you consume differently. And you're like, yeah, no, I don't want to do any of that. Okay, then you're going to stay angry because it's sort of like what you said earlier about you sort of get what you put out there.
Yeah, you are what you eat.
You are what you eat. You're also, even if you don't publicize it, you are still energizing the world with your negative energy, and you'll still get it back. So
that is so, I have to ask you nowadays, how do you get your news? How do you consume the current events if it's not on social media?
Oh, that's a great question, because first of all, if Facebook is how someone gets their news, I can't fathom it, because of course I'm on there just enough to so people can find me and then email me privately. That's the only reason I do that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But it's going to be like my crazy aunt and my mom sending some, I have such a hard time understanding how anyone gets anything real from there. So anyway, so obviously not there. I feel like my main stuff is I definitely will read news articles, kind of have some favorite sources, but I've been big on this my whole life. I listen to a radio show or podcast, which I love podcasts, that's pretty conservative, and then I'll listen to one that's pretty liberal. And part of it is I just don't want to be in my own bubble. Yeah. So I can do that in small doses, but I kind of try to make it equal. It's sort of like vegetables and dessert. I'm like, okay, I can't have all this dessert. I need to, so I think that's one way I do it. The other is sometimes I just stick my head in the sand and take a break because I can't absorb it. It's too much. And then I just, watch good news.
Yeah. Well, and you can't really, there's a lot of things in the world that you have no control over. You have no control over what happened in Las Vegas. You have no control over what natural disasters or everything. And if you just constantly bombard yourself with it and you feel helpless, I mean, yeah, you can donate money, of course, but you can't do anything physical to fix it. So you're just sitting there in your own negativity and the negativity of others, and it doesn't help at all.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I'm very fascinated by this discussion because I live on social media for my job. It's what I do. It's part of what, and I know your brother Scott has had this conversation as well, and many times, and I agree with them. It's like, I feel like if I don't stay informed, then I'm doing myself a disservice of what's going on in the world. I feel like I am, and that in itself, it's that double-edged sword where you feel like, if I'm not informed about what's happening, then I'm a bad citizen. I'm a bad U.S. citizen for not knowing what's going on in my government, in my world, and in the country. But at the same time, what is it doing to my emotional and mental health? To have that constantly. And here's an interesting thing. I think we're gonna wind this down a little bit, but I think Wendy would love this. There have been times where I have literally wanted to say, I'm going to go I'm going to put my phone on silent, social media and that kind of thing. And I have gotten in trouble with my parents because I live in Minnesota. My parents live in New Jersey. That's where I was born and raised. We talk to each other about once a week, but for some reason, every time I have tried to go offline, my father thinks it's that time that he has to text me and then freak out that he has not heard from me in 6 hours. Now, I seriously, I live in another state. And so now I have to actually tell my father when I'm going to turn my phone off, so that he doesn't freak out that he hasn't heard from me in 6 hours. And I'm 43 years old. He does not hover, but it just this uncanny thing that I freak out. I'm like, I literally cannot just say I'm going off the grid. I'm turning this off. I'm going off the grid for a day without telling people where I am. What?
I know. Do you guys remember being kids and you just would wander all day?
Yeah.
Those were the days.
Go outside and walk around.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating to me that I have to do that. I feel like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't stay in contact. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Welcome to the world that we live in. And it's just, wow. And so I have to figure out how to balance those two things, because otherwise, you can't go from one extreme to the other. Obviously, you can't just say, I'm online all the time. You can reach me all the time. And now I'm going to say I'm gone for a day without telling all the people who rely on you being there all the time that you're not going to be there.
Right. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, you just have to tell them. I mean, if you think about, I'm glad you used the word mental health, because obviously that's probably why you invited me here. But mental health, just like our physical health, just like our emotional health, we have to protect it. We have to be in charge of it. So often, historically, forever, it's like, well, you either are happy and your life's great, or you have mental illness. No, that is not true. It is either we care for it. Yes, there's mental illness. There's nothing you can do to prevent, or, it's illness. But there is also just sort of like dilapidating mental health, right? Like you can expose yourself over and over and over to things that will literally create a serious problem for you. So you have to guard it. No one else is going to do it. Your dad, he just wants to make sure you're okay. That's his issues, right? He's fine. And that's great because he loves you and it's a good thing. Right. There are people who are like, I wish my dad cared, right? Okay, great.
Yep.
So don't complain about that. But yet, your mental health, which means you need a day off. Like, when was the last time you were off completely 100% from everything?
Never. Because here's what happened, Wendy.
1994.
You're gonna laugh at this. You're gonna laugh at this because the time that I did this, I turned my phone off and I didn't tell my dad. And he actually called my apartment complex and had someone come over to my apartment to knock on the door to make sure I was okay. And
I had that happen to a coworker. She left her phone downstairs and was just upstairs playing WoW, and her sister couldn't get a hold of her, and they called the police, and the police kicked down her door.
yeah. And so,
and it was like 2 hours. 2 hours of non-contact.
2 hours of non-contact. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing
Do
is
people take naps? I mean, come on.
right. I know.
I know, yeah.
So
Okay,
I literally,
so
I just wanted to say this too. Like I am frustrated with that too, because if I tell my dad I need to take a mental health day, what's wrong? Are you okay? Is everything all right? It's like, no, I don't want to have to explain it. I just want to go do it. I just want to go do it.
Right. Yeah. Yes, exactly. Okay, I understand that. But here's the thing. I think Dr. Phil said this, but it's true, even though he said it. You train people how to treat you.
Yes.
A lot of times. And what have you done? You have answered that dang phone whenever it rings. You have responded to a text within 30 seconds. You have trained everyone in your life that you are responsive. I have trained everyone in my life. If they want to get a hold of me on a weekend, good luck. I've trained them. If it's dinner time, you will never hear from any of us. You can plan our funerals, but you will not hear from us during a dinner hour.
Yeah.
But they've known that for a long time. Back when we had landlines, I think maybe even we had cords. No, it was not that long ago. But still, we just made those rules, and it is really beneficial. But so you have to think, okay, do I take charge of my mental health this way? And maybe just test it a little bit. Right. One day, just get an auto text response that says, I'm busy for the next couple hours. I'll get back with you, or something that just shoves everyone away for a little bit, and no one has to panic or call the landlord, and give yourself a little break, and eventually figure out how to have a whole Saturday where your phone's not with you. What would happen? So I love to ask people this question because it is kind of alarming. But all right, so if you two had a friend who you knew when they woke up in the morning, before they could even lift their head off the pillow, they had to reach over and grab a bottle of wine and start drinking. That was the only way they're going to get out of bed. You'd be pretty worried, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So do you know anyone, I don't know, in the whole world who, before they lift their head off the pillow, they have to reach over and grab something and use it, before they get out of bed? But are we worried about you?
No.
and we're not as worried because the dopamine hit it actually wakes people up, right? The blue light, the dopamine, it gets us going. We think and then suddenly we're in the time warp, right? And 30 minutes has gone by and we're late for work or whatever. But we think of it as harmless. We think of alcohol, well, that's terrible. But there is a difference on one hand, but on the other, you really can't live without that, can you?
Yeah. And when it's tied directly into what you do for a living, it's even worse.
You're never on vacation. Ever.
No. The only way I would ever be on vacation is if I were to go on a cruise where I'd have to turn my phone off, and then I think about the amount of planning that would have to happen ahead of time to make sure that people know I'm not available for a week,
Right.
And
just pin that tweet up at the top of your page.
Exactly. Because as Wendy just put it, which I mean, amen, we train people how to find us or what our behaviors are. And I have had this conversation with your brother, because he's just like that too, and I know he's tried to go on the social media detox, and it's very tough, because that's what he does for a living as well. And when you tied those two things in, it becomes so much more complicated. So it's just food for thought, and for sure, I wish I could move to Utah just so I could have sessions with you. So.
You can have sessions with me no matter where you live. I'm just a life coach outside of Utah.
I see. So if you guys want to hire Wendy,
that's all.
Anything else you guys would like to touch on with this topic before we wrap it up? Because I know we've had you on for over an hour already, which has just flown by. You're so much fun to talk to.
Thanks for having me.
I can't really think of anything else to add on. Just remember, you people only present who they want you to see online, and not everything is gardens and roses and kittens and unicorns, but also sometimes people's lives aren't always as negative as they put on. If they're always complaining, they do sometimes have good things in their life, but it's not worth griping about something awesome.
Yeah.
It's some people like to say only good things, some people like to say bad things online. So there's still a person behind that tweet. Don't forget it.
It's good. I would throw something out just really quick about the brain. It's great and it does lots of cool stuff, but it's also kind of stupid and has not evolved, in the last 3 years to handle social media. And so you can know that it's photoshopped. You can know that's a fancy filter or that Jules took 20 pictures to get the perfect one. You can know all of that, but your brain's like, doesn't matter, still looks awesome. I'm still feeling jealous.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're wondering, like, I know better, why do I feel so crappy? It's because your brain's dumb. And it will, in 150 years, we'll probably catch up to this evolutionary change, I think. But at the moment, it's. I think if I could say one thing, it would be to just safeguard your mental health. And if you don't know what's going on that's making you feel crappy, it's kind of like if you had allergies, you would eliminate things from your diet to figure out what it is. Maybe eliminate Twitter and see if your life isn't better, or eliminate phone calls from a family member on a certain Friday night, or find ways to sort of safeguard your privacy, your downtime. I mean, that's one of the things we all struggle from, is we don't have enough downtime, and we are not meant to work 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. It takes a toll. So
it does.
Yeah, protect your, guard it if you can.
Absolutely. I mean, this weekend I was feeling exactly what you described. Just kind of like down and just brought down by the constant barrage of negativity that's out there on social media. And so I did something that I don't normally do, which is to go out and be in nature. Like, go and be by plants and flowers and take a walk and get a break. Like, I physically just took myself out of the environment, and it changed everything. And, even the normal stuff that I would do that would make me feel better wasn't working. So sometimes you have to mix it up. Sometimes you have to change your scenery, have to change the narrative, of what it is that you're constantly spinning over. And we as gamers spend so much time in front of our computer screens and with our handheld screens that it's easy to forget that.
It really is. But, that's an opportunity. I know, Jules, you lived in Minnesota for a little while now, but there's plenty, like tons of places nearby that you've never been to, tons of restaurants you've never been to, parks, all this stuff. So getting out in nature and seeing different things, giving yourself new experiences absolutely helps. Because I
went
to go for a drive.
Yeah. It was like the first time I'd never been there. I've lived here for a year and I didn't go there before. So I was like, I'm going there today. Let's go.
Yeah. Pick a direction and go.
Yeah.
Because I will tell you, your brain has been evolved to enjoy the sound of water running, the colors that are in nature, the sounds, the smells. That's actually what we are geared for.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you haven't done that in a long time, that is an awesome way. Even if it's just a little bit here or there, even if you could do it once a month, you would be shocked at how rejuvenating that is. That's an awesome idea. I recommend that to everybody.
Yeah, go to a zoo, see lots of different animals too. I mean, just change up what you're looking at.
Yeah.
Because
don't go to the zoo on a Sunday, because that's what I tried to do yesterday. That was dumb. So
tons of people.
Too many like screaming children. No, go during a work day or a weekday. Take the day off and go during the day. That's all I'm gonna say about that.
or go in the winter. I went to the zoo in the winter once, and it was a ghost town, but animals are still out.
Yeah, animals have nowhere else to go. They're staying.
They're like, where am I gonna go? My summer cottage? I don't have one.
This conversation was amazing, and I am so grateful to you, Wendy, for coming on the show. Can we ask you to tell the audience where they may be able to get in touch with you? You're on Instagram. That is your social media. Can they follow you on Instagram?
That is They can. That's the only place on social media they can find me. And it's Wendy with an I, because my mom thought I was a Barbie cheerleader. Wendy with an I, Dunford, on Instagram. And then therapythursdays.com. If you want to write in a question, I use them for the show all the time. And you can see stuff there. And I'm better. 6 years ago, you couldn't find me at all. Now you can find me in 2 places. That's pretty good.
Which is incredible. And you can also find her on Therapy Thursday, the segment on the morning stream, which is hosted by her brother Scott Johnson and his co-host Brian Ibbett. They are both wonderful people, friends of the show, and I definitely encourage you to listen. Wendy covers all different topics for any kind of advice. It's just it has ranged beyond what this show has done, and that's saying something. So.
It's ranged way beyond my expertise too. So there's just know that grain of salt.
But you know what? You do so much wonderful work in research and trying to figure out, if you don't have the expertise on the question, you definitely go out the extra mile to go find it. And you have changed my perspective on many a thing that I've listened to on that segment. So thank you for all the work that you've done for our audience, for the extended universe, because Frog Pants is definitely an extended universe of ours. And we love Scott and Brian as well.
Oh, yeah.
And you can find this show on social media, which is facebook.com/Tauren Think Tank, on Twitter at Tauren Think Tank, and also our Discord server, which is tinyurl.com/TTTchat2. Mark Conan, tell the folks where they can find us on social media.
You can also find us on Twitter at 140 character less, or maybe 280 now. I don't know if they're going to change that. You can find Jules at JulesRPG, and you can find me at Mark Conan. Wow, that's MarConinWow.
We record every Thursday night at 8 o'clock Central at twitch.tv/Tauren Think Tank, and our website is taurenthinktank.com. We thank you guys so much for coming to listen to the show on a Monday. Wendy, for being here on her Monday evening. You are amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for being here.
We will not have a show this Thursday because this is our weekly show. So we'll be back next Thursday with another show. Until next time, /moo, everybody.
/moo, guys.
Sorry, chat room, no sounders today. They were very vocal, and I didn't get a chance to bring in their questions, but there was one that I wanted to just point out real quick to Wendy. Tiber said, those people who go to concerts and hold up their phones and record the concerts instead of actually experiencing the concert, that drives me insane too.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, I don't know if you saw that picture going around where it was a grandmother watching. It was some kind of parade, something lovely happening. And she's just smiling. She has this like pure bliss on her face. And everyone around her is fumbling with their phones or filming it. And everyone's looking through the thing. And it was like, oh yeah, she doesn't even know that she's doing this thing.
Yes.
And they're just like missing it. And there's one guy with like his glasses, like can't figure out, and it's, I love that picture. Because I want to be her. That's what I just want to be her.
Yeah, I'm same way.
I had something similar when the solar eclipse happened a couple months ago over here. Yeah, I went up to Missouri right in the middle of totality. My wife's a photographer, so she let me have one of her DSLRs. And when it happened, I was like, I am going to take like 5 pictures, but I'm going to be looking at it with my own 2 eyes. I'm not going to look through the viewfinder. And it was all the pictures I took, they turned out great, but they don't compare to the real deal because that was beautiful. And I'm so glad that I got to experience it with my own eyes. And that's so true to sometimes just look at it. Like, you don't have to have it on your phone, everything. Yes, it's good, but later
when you look at it again, do you ever look at it again? Some things maybe, but the majority, no.
No.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so jealous. I was listening. We were watching it live on it, of course, I'm not in the country, so I didn't get to see it. But I just loved the awe and felt like America was united for 1 minute. I mean, it was so fun to watch. It made me so proud of you guys for a day.
Yeah.
For one day, we felt like we were one, and then it was like, screw you again.
Back to that. Anyway, that's cool.
Like, I know physicist Michio Kaku has said that it's the closest thing that most scientists can come to a religious experience.
Right.
But and you know, as a religious person, I get it, and it totally was.
Yeah.
I was in a field behind a church in Missouri with 200 other people at least, and it was just, you felt this like group feeling presence happening, and
Right.
it was beautiful. It was so good.
So I think it was Radiolab. A bunch of people had sent in their audio of watching Totality.
Yeah.
And did you hear that? And just little kids and their parents and people crying. And I'm sobbing. And I'm
Yeah.
like,
Oh, I was crying though. Like when it happened, I was.
amazing.
You could ask my friend Bimini, who was with us. She had to like give me a hug after it was over. I was like, I need human contact. That was so beautiful. I'm a sap too, so that doesn't help any.
Cool.
Yeah.
Way to go.
Oh, gosh. All right, chat room, we're going to sign off here. Say goodbye to you guys, and then we'll say goodbye to Wendy. So thank you so much for being with us on a Monday afternoon, and we will be back the following Thursday.
And Draven, if you have any ideas for the show title, you want to send them to us, you
Yeah,
can tweet them.
please just send that to us. Otherwise, we're going to be like, we're just going to come up with, get off of social media or something like that.
Yeah.
Get off social media, but follow us on social media.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very complicated.
Before you go, send us a like, a follow, and a retweet, please.
Right. Bye,
Because
chat
we need
room.
it. We need help.
/boo.